We're back!
Long time ago in a galaxy far, far away, our nerd love was strong. It's gone astray.
Hello and welcome to The Holochronologist. I'm Alyssa.
And I'm Ben. And we're back.
We're back and we've got comics.
Woo.
So today we're looking at the High Republic comic line.
Yeah, High Republic and High Republic Adventures.
Yeah. So we've got the first 4 High Republic and the first
3 High Republic Adventures.
Correct. So timeline check. We're in the High Republic era.
They both basically take place at the same time. High Republic stuff is all very much condensed into the same kind of period. We're not looking at major timeline skips, and a lot of it overlaps.
A lot of it's going on during the Light of the Jedi, which is most things are going on. We do see stuff happen in the comics that's the end of the Light of the Jedi. So, media review. Ben, do you want to get us started with...
Spoiler-free media.
Spoiler-free media review. Do you want to get us started with High Republic Adventures?
Yeah, sure thing. So I read the Adventure series first. I liked it. It was great. Beautiful illustrations. Solid story so far. Meeting some new Force users. We meet some Padawans. The Nihil are back. I'm always excited to see that the Nihil are back. And now in like a very visual form. We're getting some cool like rec punk look.
So then, review of High Republic run. I enjoyed it a lot. There's definitely cliffhangers at the end of each book, and I'm like, I need to start reading the next one.
It's almost like that's how the media of comic books get you.
Right. Yes. But, so what I'm saying is, it's a very good run. It's definitely very intriguing. It's tying in things we've already seen so far, and then also bringing in some new stuff, which is really interesting. And it's great to see more of these characters that we've seen kind of peripherally taking the center stage here in the High Republic comics. So we get to see Sskeer, and it's really cool to get more of him rather than just like him appearing and doing small bits in the other books that we've read. Now he's a main character for this comic run, which is really great.
Yeah, I really like how the comics are, instead of focusing on the same main characters that we get in the books, they're kind of giving the side characters from the books the spotlight. So it's really kind of filling in the universe, because we're getting, you know, references to the same characters, and we're getting all of these kind of interwoven characters and stories, which is awesome. But it's not like 2 characters just dominating the space.
Mm-hmm. It's like every Jedi is the main character of their own story, and those are all happening in literal books and comic books.
Yeah.
It makes it feel like a very complete world, I think.
Yeah.
Okay, so that's our media review. From here on out, there's definitely spoilers.
Yeah, for sure. In case it wasn't a spoiler before, the Nihil are back.
Whoa!
And the Drengir are back.
Whoa!
The Adventures, the Nihil are back. Martian Rowe is back.
Mm-hmm.
I wasn't expecting for him to show up.
Yeah.
I guess we'll get into that in a second. But I guess we should just start with High Republic Adventures. We start off with Lula Tolisola, who is a human Padawan, or humanoid Padawan, on the... Starhopper, yeah. And it's the Jedi Master Torben Buck. And Yoda are the 2 Jedi Masters with a bunch of Padawans, and they're going to deal with another emergence.
Because they were the only Republic ship. They were the only Republic ship anywhere nearby.
Yeah, not just Jedi, only Republic.
Yeah, so despite it being a ship full of Padawans, they're the only ones that are available to do anything. And so Master Yoda and Master Buck are both like, we're gonna do it.
We're here. It
we
comes
can't run
to
away.
us. The Padawans are tasked with going down to the planet to try to evacuate the city. Master Buck and Master Yoda decide we're going to deal with the larger debris in space. The Padawans are going to go down to the surface and get the big cities evacuated. And then we cut down to our other main character of this series, Zine Mrala and her friend Crix Camerat, who are on the planet. They're not from this planet. They're
part of a commune is what it calls it.
Yeah, of like traveling nomads.
Yeah, so they like travel around to different places. So they're saying like they've never been in a place very long. They've lived a bunch of places in like 10 years.
And their community has like this really weird, like, they don't have like a family structure. It's just kind of like parents will just leave, and then you just kind of have these like sects of, you have the elders and you've got the children.
And they don't like the Force. They don't like
They equate it
Force
to
users.
fire. They
Yeah.
explain that it's like playing with fire and that it's dangerous and it's like interesting to see, but don't touch it, don't mess with it because it can hurt you.
That's unfortunate for Zine, who has realized
That she's Force sensitive and she's always felt the Force and known that she has like access to it, but has always kind of like shied away from opening up to it because of this kind of disdain for the Force in her community, despite wanting to. She feels the Force, she wants to open herself to Force, she wants to use the Force, but her community is so just like against it that she's kind of like tried to, I don't want to say shut herself off because we know characters that actually have done that.
Yeah.
But she's kind of trying to like shy away from it.
Yeah, she's trying not to tap into it. She hasn't told anybody, even her best friend. She doesn't really know what to do with it.
They're on the planet and they're seeing the comets falling and, you know, chaos erupting. And her friend Crix is like, we should get to the capital because the elders will know what to do. And they run into a group of Nihil who are escorting one of the elders onto their ship. Which their ship looks awesome, by the way. It's this kind of like spindly spider, like, looks like a bunch of bits like welded together. It's nasty looking. It's really cool.
Then the Jedi show up, so we have a bunch of the Padawan that come down, and they're trying to basically ask the Nihil for their ship. But that doesn't go well because, as we know, they're Nihil. So they're not gonna help anybody out.
Especially not Jedi.
Especially not Jedi.
As I point out, especially not kids.
Especially not kid Jedi. So then, of course, fighting ensues, and Zine is like, oh my goodness, I feel a connection to these people.
They're clearly here to help.
They're here to help. They have the Force. And she actually ends up helping by stopping debris that's falling.
Like a major chunk of debris.
A huge piece of debris. So she starts stopping it, and then we see...
I mean, the Jedi Padawans seem impressed with her ability to, you know, fend off these, like, massive chunks of debris. But her friend Crix is, like, destroyed by this because he realizes that his best friend Zine, who he's known his, like, entire life, is a Force user. And so he's like, shattered by this.
Yeah. He ends up trying to go with their elder who's being taken by...
Martian Row! I was not expecting Martian Row to, like, show up so quick.
Taken by the Eye.
Yeah. And he looks awesome in these illustrations. His helmet's got the whole, like, you know, sketched in eye symbol that it talks about in the book. And he looks nasty. Yeah,
so Crix goes with the Nihil and the Elder.
Yep, that is Elder Tromac.
After the Elder convinces Martian Row to, you know, take the kid with them, but Zine is worried for her friend. She doesn't want him to go with them. She thinks he's being kidnapped. Master Yoda says that he will go in and try to rescue the boy while the rest of them fight.
Led by Torben Buck, Master Torben Buck, whose self-proclaimed nickname is Buckets of Blood?
Yes, it's Buckets of Blood has arrived on the scene is what he yelled when he landed. What's confusing about that for all of the Padawans?
Well, I mean, it was confusing to
also
me as a reader
us.
as well, because that's, like, way more heavy metal than I expected from any Jedi.
But it gets more confusing when Yoda's like, yeah, I'm gonna go rescue this little boy, and Master Buck goes, I'm not a fighting Jedi, I'm a healer, like, what are you doing? So, what a name for a healer. And in fact, the Padawans, you know, later on can't help but ask, why are you buckets of blood? Like, what? And he's like, because I'm a I keep the buckets of blood in people. And the Padawans are like, that's
like,
not what
buckets of blood for healing.
That's not what that means.
Yeah, he has this, like, shocked face when they don't get it. It's so funny. I thought it was pretty evident that buckets of blood meant I was helping people. So then we get, like, Spy Master Yoda sneaking on board the Nihil ship. He finds Crix, and he gives him a comlink. And he says, look, I know you don't trust Jedi, so I'm not going to have the other comlink. I'm going to give it to your friend Zine. Reach out to her if you need anything. You know, I just want to make sure you're okay.
Yeah, because he realizes Crix is not going to go with him, because Crix is mad at Zine for having lied to him, and he he trusts the Elder, so he's gonna go with him instead.
An inherent distrust of Force sensitives. Crix takes it, and then we find out that Yoda had to... Well, then he gives up Yoda. He yells, like, the Jedi's over here! And all the Nihil go after Yoda, and then we find out that Yoda, like, he got off, but he messed up a lot of the Nihil.
Also, he found something.
Yeah, he mentions that there was something in their ship that was really disturbing.
Yeah, because there's also a panel where you see him looking into a box that's kind of like glowing out at him, and he's just, but we have no idea what's in the box. And then later he says, that they have something on the ship. But Yoda manages to get off the ship, and then they are greeted by more Republic and Jedi ships coming in. There's a medical frigate, there's a bunch of vectors, and the Nihil are trying to escape, and they're trying to block them off, but they attack the medical frigate because, they're Nihil. They're like, so what?
So they attack the medical frigate, the medical frigate, in order to distract the Jedi vectors so they can
escape into hyperspace.
Exactly.
The Jedi take Zine with them because they're trying to evacuate so many people anyways.
She's clearly Force sensitive. She has a connection with the Padawans.
So they have to figure out kind of what they're going to do with her.
They invite her to come to Starlight Beacon with them.
She goes with them.
I have to say, I really enjoy about these comics is they have, like, side pages that are just, like, data layouts. It's a map of the galaxy with places of interest pointed out. So it has where the Starlight Beacon is, where the Trimant is, Tatooine, all kind of blocked out. And then there's one that has, like, a spread with, like, the Starhopper ship and the Nihil Spider craft. And it's just cool seeing these kind of technical layouts that are, like, more in-universe feel.
Crix has the, like, holo comm, and then Zine has the other one. So they're kind of sending messages back and forth. Zine is sad because, like, the place that she had felt most at home, the city, is now destroyed. She's with these Padawans and these Jedis who are her friends, but she's lost her best friend. She doesn't really know what's going on. Even though at the same time she's saying that, like, this is the first time she's had, like, true fun and been able to be herself because she doesn't have to try to hide her abilities and, like, try to feel bad about the fact that she knows the Force, because now she's surrounded by people that constantly are learning how to use the Force. And I think that's just a really interesting way to, in Star Wars universe, kind of represent that feeling of finally finding a welcoming community for who you truly are, when you've grown up in a society or a culture that does not like what you are, And
it's a really interesting juxtaposition of these two characters, because Zine is kind of in this position where she finally feels at home. She kind of has everything that she's wanted, with the exception of her best friend, whereas Crix is in this position where he's kind of put into, like, survival of the fittest, do whatever it takes to survive mode. And he's like, I guess I'm okay. They're feeding me food, so that's all right, but it's going to be cutthroat here, and that's how I have to be.
Yeah.
And he feels totally abandoned.
Yeah, he does. And so the Jedi have taken Zine, but they're not sure quite what to do with her because
they mentioned she's too old to become a Jedi.
Yeah, she's too old for them to start training her, but she is Force sensitive. The system where she's from is still going through so much trying to recover from the emergence. And
I really like how this is handled, because then Lula Talisola, the kind of main character Jedi Padawan, steps forward and is like, look, you guys can debate this all that you guys want, but the most important person to decide what happens to Zine is Zine.
Yeah.
And then the other Padawans are like, and the second most important people are us, because we're her friends. So we want her to stick around, and if that's what she wants too, then that's how it should be.
The Jedi kind of decide, well, for now anyways, we can't bring her back to where she was. We might as well keep her here on the Starlight Beacon so we know that she's safe. And then, I mean, also, if you have this kid who is obviously very strong in the Force, considering what she was able to do, you probably want to figure out something to do with her rather than just, like, let her loose to be taken over by bad people.
Right, because at this point we also know that, based on the other books that we've read, that there are other paths for Jedi other than being Jedi.
Yeah.
So they might be able to not train her as a Jedi, but they might be able to put her on a, like, light side path.
Exactly. So I feel like the Jedi don't want to straight out abandon her somewhere because she is strong in the Force, and that would be
That would
probably
lead to dangers.
there's a darkness out there that they don't want to be got.
So then we go over to Crix, who's... Oh boy. So Martian doesn't like him right off the bat. The Nihil are Nihil, and we find out that the reason Marchion Ro took Elder Tromac is because there's like a secret artifact that the members of Elder Tromac's society split into two pieces and then hid amongst the stars, and Marchion Ro wants it. And Elder Tromac is the only one who knows where it is, and so he's kind of torturing to try to get the information out of him, and he's not breaking. And so Crix kind of does this devious maneuver where he learns about the artifact and where it's located, because he's like, Elder Tromac, you can trust me, and clearly they might kill you, so don't you want someone in your community to be able to remember and pass this on as it's supposed to be? And Elder Tromac is like, yeah, I absolutely should. So it's, there's these two artifact pieces that are in these sectors in space, and then they immediately get thrown in a gladiator pit,
which was crazy.
And then
kind of wish we'd seen more of that.
I really wish that we saw more of that. We got one nice big splash page, and how it was set up was this is on the Gaze Electric, which is Marchion Ro's flagship, which is evidently huge, because this splash shows like a whole like Roman Colosseum style enclosure within the ship, and it's set up that you have two combatants on like a team, and one of them has to ride on this giant beast, and the other person has to like sort of restrain it and run in front of it in order to stop it from going totally crazy, run amok on the ship. And we get this awesome splash of 6 or 7 of these things going at it, with like all these sort of cool aliens riding it and running into each other. It's really just one panel, and it would have been really cool to see some more combat there, I guess.
Yeah, but it's cut short because
Marchion has found the holo communicator that Crix and Zine have been using,
and that Yoda had placed a tracker beacon in.
And so he announces, stop the fight, there's a traitor amongst us, someone has been communicating with the Starlight Beacon. And immediately, Crix gives up Eldar Tromac and is like, it's his, I saw him using it. So we know Crix is going to be this kind of like devious manipulator character, which is interesting, it's really cool. Martian immediately has Elder Tromac killed, and then takes Crix aside and is like, hey, I know it was yours. I saw the holo messages on it, and it obviously wasn't his. But I respect what you did, and that's really interesting. But it did have a tracker in it, so the Jedi know where we are. So, are you going to help us use this information so that we can, set a trap for the Jedi? Or should I basically kill you now? Is kind of the line that he's given. And Crix is like, yeah, that's my option, I'll take it.
And then on the other hand, you have Zine, who didn't know there was a tracker in it, but Yoda is saying there is, but we can't use it unless there's messages sent as we're closer to where it already is. They're asking Zine to basically do the same thing that Crix is being asked to do to help them be able to find where the Nihil are.
Which is really interesting, because it kind of points out, even though the Jedi are nicer about it, they're still doing the same kind of, like, manipulative tactics, almost, that the Nihil are using.
Right. Except they're not...
They're not threatening you with death, but they're kind of playing on the emotions a little bit. Like, do you want to help us, your friends?
Right, yeah.
I get that the Jedi are, like, obviously the good guys here. It's just, interesting that the layout for this comic was the best of the 3, I think. Mm-hmm. Because you had so much, like, incredible shots of, like, juxtaposition between, Zine's position and Crix's position, and visually was conveyed very well with kind of the back and forth, and a lot of cool shots of them, like, that were just, like, split panels where half of it was Crix and half of it was Zine. And so you can tell that they're both going through similar situations. I mean, obviously one of them's better off, one of them's with the Jedi, who clearly do care about Zine. Mm-hmm. But it was just laid out really, really beautifully. And so props to the whole team that worked on that, which I should say right now. So thank you to the High Republic Adventures team, writer Daniel José Older, artists Harvey Tolibao of Magnus Arts, Pau Rodrix of Magnus Arts, Rebecca Nalty for doing colors, and Jake M. Wood for doing letters. You guys did a fantastic job.
We'll leave off with the High Republic Adventures. So that's the first 3 comic book of that run. And we're going to move to the High Republic run.
Onto Star Wars The High Republic comic book line.
So here we are first seeing...
Keeve Trennis.
Yes. So we're seeing Keeve Trennis, who is currently on Sheridan out in the frontier of the Republic and is supposed to be taking her trials to become a full Jedi Knight. Mm-hmm. She's there with her master, Sskeer.
Gotta love Master Sskeer.
Who, at this point, to help us know where in the timeline this is going on, is missing an arm.
One-armed Sskeer!
So he currently only has one arm. He's Trandoshan, so his other arm's still growing back.
And he still kicks ass! Sorry, I like Sskeer a lot.
They are fighting, and then he is like, okay, here's your trial. These, like, needle things that are just really tall.
Yeah, they're these, like, super jagged, almost straight up spines in this earth.
And so he's like, I placed a, like, pendant up at the top of one of them. Many people have failed trying to climb it. I want you to climb it and retrieve that pendant.
All the while, she's being annoyed by, the race is called Ximpi, Ximpi, named Conry, and they're basically, like, tiny fairy people. They've got, like, little wings, and they're, like, he's zipping around asking her, like, really annoying questions, like, aren't you afraid? Why are you gonna fall? You can't fly. I can fly. That's why I'm not afraid to be up here. What if you fall? You're gonna die. Don't do this. This is crazy.
I'd be afraid if I couldn't fly.
Aren't you scared? And Keeve is just like, no, I'm not. I can climb. I've done this before. I've done stuff like this before. And then a swarm of Ridadi, which are these, like, big
Huge
locusts,
insects.
Just comes crashing through. They're, like, massive. Like, we're talking, like, bus-sized locusts that are, like, big and red and nasty looking, and they just crush all of these spines and are wreaking havoc because there are these Ximpi villages, which are kind of like rock mounds, and they're just crashing through them.
And they're headed really towards the main village, and so she decides, you know what, I'm supposed to be finishing my trial. I should finish my trial, or I should check with Sskeer, but there's no time. Like, we gotta save this village. I'm just gonna take this vector, and I'm gonna do what I need to do.
Acting like a Jedi is more important than becoming an official Jedi.
Mm-hmm. So she manages to kind of get them on her tail using the vector, and she's in contact with the Starlight Beacon, being like, hey, what are these things? And they figure out the species, like Ben said, and that they usually only come, like, once a generation, because that's just their timeline, and they're migrating.
And they mostly go to uninhabited planets as well.
Yeah, but they use a pulsating star kind of as their guidance signal. And, of course, now you have the Starlight Beacon out in the frontier, so it caused them to get off course. You know, like baby turtles on the beach, they think the lights, the people lights,
they follow the moon, yeah.
And so they think the people lights are the moon, and then they accidentally go towards inland instead of to the water. It's basically what's happening here. Higher life form interference has veered them, so they are off track.
So Master Astala, who's really cool, I don't know what species they are, but they look badass. And they're kind of like this, like, Jedi tech wizard, always surrounded by, like, floating hologram screens. And he's like, all right, I'm gonna just switch up the frequency so we're no longer beaming out on their radar. And Keeve takes the opportunity to have the Jedi vector she's in start broadcasting the Starlight Beacon frequency, and then just kind of launches it into space, hits the eject button, and all of the locusts, the Ridadi, follow it into space.
And then she's very apologetic to Sskeer, and the little fairy thing, what was it?
His name is Canry.
Canry was like, dude, you just, like, destroyed a ship. Are they gonna be mad at you? And she's like, no, because, like, there's plenty of vectors, but there are only, like, a few.
The Ximpi villages are much more rare and much more important.
She trusts in that, but she is worried that Sskeer will be maybe upset, because when she gets back to him, he doesn't look
pleased.
super pleased, but they head back to the Starlight Beacon and talk to Avar Chris.
I also have to say, I love Keeve's inner monologue, because Keeve, like me as a person, just kind of swears in her general rhetoric, and I love her interaction with Avar Chris, because she just they land on the Starlight Beacon, she's walking out with Sskeer, and they run into Avar Chris, and she's like, Criff, you're Avar Chris, that's so criffing cool, oh my god, and like her inner monologue is like, stop swearing.
And then she swore again, and then she's like, why did I do that? Yeah. And so she's really concerned that they're like, unhappy and that because of her trials, and she's like, I'll take them again, blah blah blah. And then Avar Chris, takes out her lightsaber and
cuts the braid.
Yeah, cuts the braid, dubs her a Jedi Knight.
And it's revealed that Sskeer kind of foresaw the whole incident with the Radadi coming, and the pendant didn't exist or wasn't important. That wasn't her real mission. Her real mission was to handle this attack on the Zimpi people and to deal with the Radadi.
What I find the most interesting is the last page of this book. Is you see Sskeer after all that's done, after you have the dedication of the Starlight Beacon, which is what the end of the Light of the Jedi is, so we're finally moving
Found our exact timeline point.
So now we're moving past that, but we see him, going into a room alone and then, literally just, screaming. It's interesting because we see in the next comic or two, he basically keeps having flashbacks to the battle where, he lost his arm, he lost
his best friend,
Jorah. So it's interesting to, see Sskeer kind of going through this PTSD trauma of this event and how it's causing him to sort of cut off from the Force. Avar Chris in this one is saying, I'm having trouble. I haven't been hearing him in the Song of the Force, which is how she kind of visualizes all of the Force. Recently, I haven't been able to really hear him in that song, and I think part of it is because he has such strong emotions and is experiencing this PTSD that he doesn't want to connect as much.
He's getting so edgy and I love it.
Edgy Sskeer.
So then we move on to the next issue.
Here we get to see Jedi Trennis, as Sskeer now insists on calling her, going on her first mission as a Jedi Knight. And so it's her, Sskeer, and a pair of Bond twins.
Sarat and Tarek Kotabi.
The two twins are super linked together. I guess that's what Bond twins mean.
I think it's also must have to do with their species. Because they look identical. They can finish each other's sentences. They're mentally linked. They know
when each other is in trouble. Their brains are basically linked.
They're so freaking cool.
Whenever one of them refers to themselves, it's always as we, which is, I think, really interesting. It's never I, it's always we.
It's really cool.
Yeah, and then as far as their preferred pronouns, which I think is really interestingly covered in this, it's they, them, because you see at one point, one of them is being treated by another Jedi, and they're like, oh, well, he's blah, 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 and I think Sskeer, maybe?
I think it was Avar Chris immediately corrects them.
Maybe, somebody else goes, oh, it's them.
Yeah.
And the other Jedi's like, oh, apologies. So again, it's nice seeing kind of this represented in the Star Wars universe. It's a we are more than one people, and, seeing this respect of, it's they, them.
Yeah.
So that's a nice thing, and they can tell when each other's hurt, when each other's in danger. They can, they just know. And, yeah, finishing each other's sentences. So it's really interesting. We haven't seen them yet in the Star Wars universe. These comics have done a great job. This whole era has done a great job of introducing new species throughout the galaxy.
I'm really enjoying the High Republic era.
It's really great to see, Jedi that aren't human. More Jedi that aren't human.
Right.
Also, as we've said, it continues with these books. There is, 2 human white men.
Mm-hmm. Yep. There's Elsar Man and...
Imri.
Right.
And even that,
he's a Padawan.
He's a Padawan, yeah. So he's training under Vernestra, who's 16.
Yep.
And is
she's a year or two older than him.
Yeah.
And awesome.
And so cool. And so it's just really interesting to see. And then in these comic books, we have 2 young women of color as the main Jedi. So in High Republic Adventures, Lula. And then here in High Republic, where we have Keeve.
Yep.
And so it's really nice to see, you know, even when you do have a human Jedi, to see women and women of color as prominent, as well as different alien species, which would represent the actual diversity of the Star Wars universe as well.
Absolutely.
So it's great to see that in these comics. I'm just really liking what the High Republic era is doing with the stories and being able to pull in things and, you know, represent these things that are going on kind of in society now, talking about acceptance and talking about that through these other characters and not pulling attention to it, but just, it's in there. It's not, oh, we're making a big deal out of this. It's just, here you go.
It's the way it is.
Here are characters that go by they, them. We have a story of Zine finally feeling like she can be who she is because she's not in an oppressive society that has great disdain for people like her. Mm-hmm. And we're seeing, like, women kicking ass. But at least we're seeing women of power as Jedi. It's great. Now that we haven't seen women Jedi, they're just less frequent.
So they arrive on... They basically picked up a distress call for this, like, derelict ship that is surrounded by, like, spaced dead bodies floating around it. And they go on board, and they discover that it's, like, full of poison gas, so they all have their breathers on, and they're pointing out this was most likely a Nihil attack, because
the gas.
The Nihil always use gas in their attacks, that's why they have their, like, gnarly-looking gas masks. And they find a dead hut, and they also find a type of, like, barley plant. Mm-hmm. Sskeer identifies it as barley, and he calls back to the Starlight Beacon, where Astala is able to identify it as Vratixia renanicus, which is a particular, like, strain of barley, and points out that it is one of the 3 main ingredients for Bacta, which, cool that we now have the 3 main ingredients of Bacta.
Yeah.
The others are Alazi and Cavan, and Bacta is fairly new. Manufacturing is actually just being discussed.
Mm-hmm. It's replacing Reju.
Reju.
Then there's a Nihil sniper still on board.
Mm-hmm.
So a singular Nihil was left behind. And Sskeer is basically like, I'm going to do this old school, like my ancestors.
Well, first that sniper, like, incapacitates Tarek.
That's true. Tarek gets shot. And then Sarek instantly knows.
Yeah.
He's like, and he knows it was a sniper. Like, he knows exactly what happened.
And so Sskeer, like, takes off his gas mask and goes, like, Trandoshan hunter mode, like, apex predator.
Which is very cool.
And then this Nihil with, like, a giant sword jumps down on him from the ceiling, and Sskeer goes a little dark side and just eviscerates him. And is basically, like, found by, Keeve finds him, right? And is like, hey, you can stop that now.
Yeah, and then, you know, they contact Starlight Beacon and say, we found a Hutt body, this is definitely a Nihil attack. Everyone's still kind of concerned about Sskeer because he's been a little weird recently.
But nobody really brings it up.
No, they don't.
And that's why Avar Kriss is like, all right, Sskeer, you take Sarek. So they're sent to the Sedri system because that's where the Vratixia renanicus barley is from. And they've deduced that the Hutt came by this plant legally because there were no reports of it being stolen and it being a highly regulated ingredient now because of Bacta production.
So not necessarily legally, but they didn't
steal it. So it was, they either bought it or harvested it in some way.
Yeah. And
it came from this planet. So Sskeer and Sarek go to investigate and are immediately confronted by Cal Solman, who's this, like, kind of curmudgeon-y, like, almost like mob bossy guy.
Yeah, he's like, no, I speak for this planet. We don't need your help. Leave. We don't want you here.
And while he's talking to Sskeer about that, Sarek sees, like, a Rodian in the, like, barley fields, and so he sneaks off to go and talk to him, and then gets attacked by something.
And just disappears.
And Tarek goes nuts.
Yeah, Sskeer finds the lightsaber, and that's it.
Yeah, so Tarek goes nuts, and then we immediately jump to the next issue, where Tarek and Sskeer are, like, physically fighting, while Avar Kriss is, like, standing by, because Tarek is just, like, screaming and, like, foaming at the mouth.
Screaming about the darkness, and it's growing, and so it's not good.
It's very not good, and Sskeer is a mite aggressive and kind of clocks Tarek out. While they're having this, Keeve decides to go into the barley fields.
Yeah, because she's out there, Well, first
Well,
of all,
she-
she's out there on guard. Some kids bring some bread for the Jedi, and some Rhodians bring like a
fancier bread.
It was like a spiced loaf
Yeah.
of something. Because they're saying like, oh, if you're here to help, we want to help you.
Because our son went missing.
Keeve finds out that there have been
4 or 5.
4 people, and then 5 including
Sarah.
5 people have now gone missing. And they're concerned, but then
Cal shows up and is
Big
like,
bully
you shouldn't
Cal.
be concerned about this. We can handle it ourselves. This isn't Jedi business. Then Keeve's like, all right, I'm going to go and handle this.
So-
because it's clearly not being handled.
yeah, so she kind of goes into the barley fields and is like, what is this? What is this? Then
She finds a little boy.
the boy is following her because he's like, I want to find my friend. Like, let me help you find your friend and we'll find my friend. I miss him.
His name is Bartol.
Yeah, the little kid. Yeah.
And they find this massive sinkhole. Keeve is like, okay, kid, go home. We found it. You're good. And he's
kid's
like,
no,
cannonball!
I jump!
Cannonball!
So Keeve has to catch him, and then she jumps down as well. They decide to start exploring.
These, like, dank tunnels, and Keeve is starting to feel dark side energy. And is like, does she start hearing voices and stuff?
Yeah, like she's sensing darkness. She can feel the dark side. And so she's like, oof, and like it's taking a physical toll on her. Meanwhile, back on the Starlight Beacon, they're doing an autopsy on the hut that they had found.
Yeah.
And it's a little crazy, but it's fun because we see 2 familiar faces. Except this is the first time we see their faces.
Vernestra's back!
Vernestra and Imri are there. They're still having problems with the bully as well. Keeve is down in that hole, facing the darkness, and then they
find who they're looking for. Yeah, so they find a dead Rhodian, and they find Sarah, who's...
And the other boy is so sad. And it's very sad. Anyway.
And Keeve is like, okay, kid, I get that it's really sad. Would it make you feel better if you held my lightsaber for me?
Yeah, basically.
And the kid's like, ooh.
I can do this? And she's like, well, I'm not going to hold it up and float it up in the air all day. And I need to take care of my
I
friend.
need to see, yeah.
Yeah.
So he holds the lightsaber while she frees Sarah. And then Sarah says some cryptic, like, evil stuff, right? Like, the darkness is coming. What is it?
No, safe. No meat is safe.
That's what it is. And then
Not
we find
from
out...
the Drengir.
Sorry, the Drengir are so cool to me because they're a dark side villain that aren't the Sith.
And now we have, like,
we get visuals of Drengir.
Of what they look like, and it's wild.
Plant vine monsters. They're great.
Reminds me of, I like to now think in my head that Audrey 2 from Little Shop of Horrors is actually just a Drengir.
See, so for those of you who are fans of Magic the Gathering, like myself, it reminds me of the Corpsejack Menace.
Okay, so not my musical theater reference.
No, okay, well, here's the thing, is Audrey 2 from Little Shop of Horrors still kind of looks cute.
I mean, I've seen some janky Audrey 2s. Yeah, I mean, it's not good.
Corpsejack Menace, straight up what these guys look like. Just big, viney, toothy monsters.
That's what Audrey 2 is.
I guess.
Look at this.
I guess. They look way scarier than Audrey 2 does, guys. Trust me. Check out the comics. They look great.
Feed me, Keeve. Because they just want meat. They just keep saying meat.
Keep saying meat.
And so the darkness travels from one twin to the other.
Yeah, that's super cool.
It's super cool.
And so, like, Tarek goes full dark side and is fighting Sskeer.
And then, like, breathes out this, like...
It's like acid or something.
Weird
it's like
dark side energy
ink
acid thing. Using the dark side basically to take control over Sskeer. Because Sskeer is felt alone because he lost his friend. He's, been struggling through trauma. So he's more vulnerable to the dark side at this point. And as we know, the Drengir are very strong in the dark side of the Force. Our Chris, luckily, jumps in to save Keeve and the boy. Well, yeah, but at that point, Sarah's kind of dark sidey at that moment.
That's true.
But they do manage to kind of get him back.
Beautiful shot of Avar Kriss just, like, falling from the sky, slicing a Drengir in half.
Oh, yeah, it's pretty good.
Full page spread. It's awesome.
But finally we see that the dark side has kind of implanted itself. The Drengir have gotten themselves into Sskeer and have replaced his arm with a viney arm.
Which, A, really cool. B, This is why we have to talk about our feelings, guys.
I know. When you if we didn't learn that from Into the Dark.
How about Star Wars 1 through 6 and the tale of Darth Vader?
If we haven't learned that from, I'm pretty sure, almost every Star Wars piece of media.
Yeah, kinda.
Don't bottle it in. That is a downfall of Jedi. They try to bottle their feelings in. Much better to express them and get them out of yourself.
But yeah, so the last panel of that isn't just Sskeer showing up, right? It's... Oh, no, it is Sskeer showing up.
It is Sskeer showing up.
It's the first panel of the next one.
Which, after you see that last panel, you're like, I have to read the next one. I can't not. You gotta read the next one.
Oh, it starts with the flashback.
It starts with the flashback, though, so it still leaves you hanging.
Yeah, oh yeah.
Because it's basically Kiev talking about how much she trusts Sskeer and, like, how he's always been there for her in all of her training and, like...
And they're doing the Great Storm Belzetifar training of jump off this cliff. And it's great because I read this part and it reminded me of Light of the Jedi where Belzetifar is trying to learn how to, like, really force jump and he keeps just falling off cliffs. And so it's Sskeer and Kiev doing that. And Sskeer says this great thing about, like, you know, we follow the path, we strive for greatness, and when we fall down, we get back up and try again. And that's all we do. And then there's this 2-page big art illustration that's just gorgeous of Sarat, Kiev, Avar Kriss, and Bartol all hanging upside down, wrapped in vines, in this, like, underground Drengir cave, and Sskeer just standing there staring at them. Oh, it's intense. It's great.
What's also really interesting about how this comic book is done is that when it's the, like, dark side influence talking through them, the speech bubbles are black with white writing.
Yeah, and they're also not, like, a clean circle.
And they're not
they
a clean
this,
circle.
Like, wavy white
so
border.
it's a very cool way to kind of...
It's a great way for the media to show when a character is, like, possessed by the dark side, or... comic books do this all the time, and it's great. It's
But what's convenient about it is that it's light side, dark side, so black and white.
Yeah, for sure.
So it's extra convenient in their case of they've really set it up good that it's dark side, light. So when they're on the dark side, your speech bubbles black.
And what's important from this point is that we're seeing, like, an inner struggle between Sskeer and the Drengir that are kind of, like, controlling him in a way, because he has lines that are, you know, himself, and then lines that are the Drengir speaking through him. Yeah. And so it's clearly presented in this matter, and it reads really well.
And then, you know, you have Kiev, who's trying to, like, talk him down, and they're trying to figure out how to deal with these Drengir, but they can't get much help from the Starlight Beacon, because the hut, they're trying to figure out how it died, because it's been stabbed, and there was a lot of gas around, but as they're doing this autopsy, none of that caused it to die.
No, it's been infested with something, hasn't it, Alyssa?
It has. It just explodes with vines.
Oh, yeah. It's like the movie Alien, but if Drengir were the alien.
I would like to say, though, when it's first saying that it was infected somehow, they're like, don't worry, we're following strict quarantine procedures. And then when it explodes, they're like, I believe our quarantine measures are about to be tested to the limits. Like, just the fact that it's coming out in a time when quarantine processes are on the front of everyone's mind, basically, is very interesting. We're all like, yes, quarantines? We know what you need to do.
And then we're back to the Drengir cave, where the Drengir are starting to, like, eat all of our captive Jedi and boy.
Yeah, and, like, try to insert themselves into their...
Oh, it's gross. They're, like, going into the nose
cavities.
And the ears with their vines. And they just keep saying, like, feed, meat.
Kiev is still trying to talk Sskeer back into the light side. Saying, like, please, like, you've promised me that you'll be here for me.
And then he snaps back to it.
Basically saying, like, I had to do it.
Yeah.
To learn their weakness.
He was like, I had to, like, let them kind of take control over me so that I can learn about them, and I let them go a little too far, but now I figured them out. And he does this, like, big force blast, which frees everybody. And then, you know, the Jedi are immediately back into action going after these guys.
And then they're able to kill them and take them out.
Yeah. But it hurts Sskeer because he has this big Drengir arm, and, the Drengir are still, like, a part of him, and he's a part of them, and... It's really cool. And then they go through and finish off the Drengir.
So they take care of that part, but you know, they go back to the town. You got the bully Cal's speaker punching up the Rhodians for having talked to the Jedi and being like, you know the rules, this isn't how this works. And then the Jedi come and are like, are you kidding me? You knew about these Drengir. You've been like letting them be here. And
he's like, what's a Drengir?
I have no idea what that is. So, don't know. And then, you know, the Drengir, they're fighting on the Starlight Beacon. Gotta deal with that. But then, of course, you know, since Cal wasn't edgy because of the Drengir, there was something else going on. So, dun 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 dun. This book ends with,
And then the Hutt Cartel arrives!
It ends with the Hutt Cartel showing up and being like, hey y'all, we want our harvest.
So, everything's going crazy. We've got so many factions at work here. I'm loving it. Do you think we're gonna get Sith showing up in the High Republic? I think we have to, right?
I don't know. It's interesting because when we technically saw some.
We did.
In this, because it's time when the Drengir are talking about it, they talk about pairing up.
We have this one page that's kind of like a brief Drengir history, and it talks about how they used to just scour planets, eating all of the flesh and bone, and then others showed up as an image of the Sith who worked with them, but then the Sith betrayed them and built the statues that are discussed in Into the Darkness, and kind of puts, I think they said they put, like, the mother asleep, or basically the
progenitor.
It implies that there's, like, a Drengir, like, queen or something that, like, connects them all, and so when she went to sleep, they all went to sleep, but then...
I mean, it's kind of like with...
It's like a hive mind, almost.
Well, bamboo, did you know that all bamboo of one kind, even if you take cuts of a piece of bamboo and you plant it somewhere completely different, bamboo only flowers once and then it dies. So the piece of bamboo you originally took the cutting from and that new bamboo that's growing somewhere completely different, and, like, it could start blooming at any time. When the original one starts blooming, so do all of the other, like, cuttings that are somewhere else started blooming.
Wait, at
and
the
then they
same
all
time?
die. Yeah.
That's so bizarre.
It's crazy.
That's
and,
really
like,
freaky.
Botanists don't know why. I don't think. My botanist friend was telling me about this, and I don't believe they know why.
Get her on the podcast.
What's the deal? I just remember her telling me this about bamboo. That's why it's extremely hard to, like, if you plant bamboo, it will spread, and it's also very hard to get rid of.
Okay, so clearly the Drengir are made of bamboo.
I guess.
We should...
Because, like, yeah, bamboo have some, like, weird, not hive mind, because they're a plant and they don't have minds.
Right.
But, like, so I'm wondering if it's kind of like that.
That's interesting. Let's get a Drengir expert on the show.
Don't know if... I feel like the only Drengir experts out there are all of the writers that have worked on the High Republic.
That's fair. Hey, if they want to come on the show, I want to learn more about these things, because they're awesome.
They're very cool.
Big fan of the Drengir. And then it mentions that some of the, like, not queen were awoken individually by explorers and others showing up, so...
Yeah. But that they, at one point, were, you know, paired with the Sith and were working with them to accomplish their goal of just getting rid of everybody else.
I think we might not see Sith until the Disney Plus show comes out.
Probably
not. It's called, like, The Acolyte or something. It sounds very, like, dark-sidey Sithy.
Yeah.
But anyway, I'm just loving all the factions at play. We've got the Republic, we've got the Nihil, who I'm loving the villains we're getting. I'm loving the Nihil, I'm loving the Drengir. I'm excited to see the Hutt Cartel in the High Republic era. I'm sure it's very similar to Hutt Cartels that we've seen throughout all of Star Wars.
It's nice that the big bad isn't just the Sith.
Again.
Yeah.
It's really cool, because that was, like, the big concern about this period, right? Is we were like, well, we know the Sith from episode 1, and we kind of know their past a little bit. Yeah, so what are they going to do with that? And now we're seeing, well, they're not limiting themselves to that.
Because we know it was like, oh, we haven't seen Sith for, like, the last 1,000 years since the, like, big war. So, yeah, we're getting to finally see villains that aren't... Villain factions that aren't, like, Sith-based.
That aren't the Sith, that can still compete with the Jedi.
And, like, still, in the case of the Drengir, still have the Force, are part of the dark side, but, you know, they're plant people, and so they use it in a different way.
Big shout-outs to the High Republic comic team. Writer Cavan Scott, who also is writing that novel that's coming out in
Rising
June. Storm. Art by Ario and Anindito. Inks by Mark Morales. Colors by Annalisa Leoni. And letters by Ariana Maher. Thank you so much, because I'm loving the series. You guys are doing great. Looking forward to the next issues coming out and talking about it more here.
Yeah, I can't wait till we have our next chump? Our next chunk of comics.
Our next chunk of comics.
Okie dokie. You know what it's time for?
What is it time for?
Whoopsie Wikipedia. Okie dokie. Here we go.
What do you got for me, Alyssa?
This is where I hit random page on Wikipedia until I end up on a canon page, and then I read it out to you here. Sometimes it's very minute details. Sometimes, like it seems today, it's something that, we already know about. It's a mainstay. So this is Bright Tree Village.
Oh, okay.
So if you don't know what that is, which you might not necessarily know the name off the top of your head, it was where the Ewoks lived.
It's the Ewok treehouse city that we see in Return of the Jedi.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So, we've seen it you see it in movies. Mm-hmm. People love the Ewoks, so it's definitely sort of an iconic Star Wars thing as well. Like, you can kind of...
It is very Star Wars. I'm very lukewarm on Ewoks.
I mean, yeah, but,
you.
People like them, other people don't like them, but,
fair.
it is a thing that people do like, and so then... You do see this.
But, before anybody gets mad at me for not liking Ewoks, it's not that I don't like Ewoks. It's just that there are, rumors out there that it was originally going to be Wookiees, and I feel like that would have been a much more, believable scenario of having a, bunch of Wookiees attack stormtroopers, and I would have loved to see that. I don't have anything against Ewoks.
Turned up in, obviously, the movies, and it's also been in different, webcomics and Forces of Destiny things.
It's in games, it's in comics, it's
a pretty...
It's the main place where we see any Ewok. So.
Yeah, exactly, and so it's all up in the trees. Sometime before the Battle of Endor, the Ewok Romba became a refugee following the destruction of his own village to make way for a shield-generated complex utilized by the Galactic Empire for the construction of the second Death Star. He was eventually accepted into Bright Tree Village by Chief Chirpa, who would rule Bright Tree Village for 42 seasons by the time of the battle. I really enjoy that it was saying something, and I just enjoy, I don't know if I realized this, that there is a Warwick family of Ewoks. There's the Warwick family.
Named after Warwick Davis, who portrayed Wicket.
That's why I really like it.
Wicket, the main Ewok.
It's Wicket.
The one with the red hoodie who
Wicket
hangs
and
out
his
with
son,
Leia.
Pommet Warwick. So I enjoy that it's Wicket Warwick.
Yeah. Oh,
technically, played by Warwick Davis. Wicket Warwick, portrayed by Warwick Davis.
Say it 3 times fast.
Wicket Warwick. That was Whoopsie Wikipedia.
And that was Whoopsie Wikipedia.
Our theme song is Frack Off by the Thundering Asteroid, so thank you to them for the use of their song.
We've got a couple of shout-outs this episode. I want to shout out Ryan Bullock, at Raza2594 on Twitter, for weekly shouting us out and other awesome Star Wars podcasts. So if you want some Star Wars listening recommendations, check him out. Additionally, I would like to thank Logan Pike for picking up the latest Star Wars High Republic for us, and my mom, Sherry Hiller, for buying all of the other comics we reviewed this episode for Alyssa for her birthday. Thank you so much.
Thank you. You can follow us on Twitter and Instagram at Holocroncast.
And on YouTube, we are the Holochronologist. I got a little bit behind on those, so I'll make sure to get this and last week's episode up as quickly as possible. So sorry about that.
You can also find us on Facebook at Holochronologist as well.
Excellent.
Next time, we will be talking about
3 short stories.
3 short stories.
And
2 in the High Republic era, and then, alas, we will be moving on from the High Republic era because we've covered everything that is already out. So
sad.
So we will periodically be coming back to the High Republic era as that new stuff is coming out. But after next episode, during next episode, we'll start moving on from there. Woot woot.
Alrighty.
Okie dokie.
Thanks for listening.
Have a good one.
Peace
Bye.
out.